The first time I realized just how off the rails things could get in a nice Florida suburb was the morning I stumbled out onto my dock and saw a hot pink, handwritten sign hammered into the piling, screaming reserved for HOA use only. You ever had one of those moments where reality just splits in two? That was me, staring at a note written in what looked like bubblegum marker, half smudged by the dew, and right under the words, some joker had drawn a lopsided crown, like this was a royal decree from the queen of the cul-de-sac. You know what I mean? It was so bonkers, I actually laughed, out loud, standing there in my pajamas, just me and the gulls. And here's the kicker, my dock? It's not shared, not community property, not even up for debate. It's clearly staked out on my deed, sitting on my slice of this patchy little waterfront, rebuilt by my own two hands after the last hurricane turned it into firewood. No easements, no fine print. So to see this kindergarten art project nailed up like it was law, man, it was surreal. Still, I knew whose handwriting that was the second I saw the jagged loops and heavy underline. Marlene Henderson, HOA president, full-time sun visor enthusiast, and self-declared empress of every square inch of the bay. You've probably met someone like Marlene. The kind who says her name followed by her title, as if she's running for office every day of her life. Drives a gleaming white Lexus SUV, keeps a clipboard tucked under her arm like it's a security blanket, and talks in this clipped, official tone, like everything's being transcribed for the record. Recently, she'd found a new obsession, yachts. Specifically, the Spirit of Freedom, a 50-foot monster of a boat whose owner, she claimed, was a very important guest. I heard about it at the pool, at the mailbox, even over the tomatoes at the grocery store. Marlene announcing that the bay would soon host a floating palace, and, naturally, it needed a proper place to dock. Except there's a slight problem. The HOA doesn't own any waterfront. They can tell you what color your mailbox should be, but they can't touch your dock, not unless you let them. So that pink sign was more than just overreach. It was delusion. I ripped it down, crumpled it in my fist, figured Marlene would cool off and find a new hobby. Rookie mistake. That same afternoon, I'm out yanking weeds when Marlene herself storms up, visor low, clipboard bristling, and without even saying hello, she plants herself at the water's edge. You'll need to vacate your dock for the weekend, she announces. We have incoming traffic. I blinked. Traffic? Lady, this isn't I-95, it's my dock. But Marlene was on a roll, telling me how our distinguished guests would be attending a charity gala, and she'd already promised them docking here. Meaning, of course, on my property. You ever hear something so wild you just have to smile? That was me, calm as a monk, telling her my deed didn't mention any yacht timeshares. She bristled, accused me of embarrassing the community, scribbled something on her clipboard, and stalked away. Thought it was over? Oh no. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of metal on metal and found Marlene, plus 2 HOA sidekicks, putting up an actual metal reserved sign, cement bucket, bolts, the works, at the top of my walkway like they were staking a claim for the queen herself. That was my line. I stormed out in my pajama shorts, told them to leave or I'd be calling the sheriff. They finished anyway, smug as ever. That night, I yanked the sign out, tossed it in my truck, and dumped it at the county landfill. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The next morning, the whisper campaign began. Marlene canvassed the neighborhood, spinning this story about how I was hostile to community events and charity, how my stubbornness was making us all look bad. At the mailbox, a neighbor asked why I hated distinguished guests. Someone else jogged by and asked if I was against progress. Marlene was turning me into the villain. Her favorite role was playing civic martyr, dressing up entitlement as public duty, and, to my shock, some people actually bought it. But here's the thing. You don't play chess with someone who thinks it's checkers. You just wait for them to overplay their hand. Sure enough, 3 days later, a glossy flyer landed in every mailbox. At the top, welcome the Spirit of Freedom with a big, showy photo of the yacht, champagne flutes, deck chairs, the whole fantasy. In tiny print, community docking provided courtesy of the HOA. Marlene had scheduled a full-on ribbon-cutting, champagne reception right on my dock. I stared at that flyer and, honest to God, started grinning. Not out of pettiness. Okay, maybe a little out of pettiness, but because the sheer audacity of it gave me an idea. If Marlene wanted a spectacle, I'd give her a front row seat to reality. So, While she dreamed of yachts, I called my buddy Eddie, a construction foreman with access to things most people only see on the river, barges. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped his phone. "You want me to park a 30-ton barge at your dock?" he asked. "Exactly. You're evil," he said. "I like it." Saturday morning. By dawn on party day, my yard looked like a wedding planner's fever dream. Folding chairs, white tablecloths, champagne buckets, banners strung between trees. Neighbors milled around, some sheepish, some complicit. And there was Marlene, strutting up and down my dock, barking orders and fussing over napkin quality, oblivious to what was coming down the bay. And then, at precisely 10 o'clock, Eddie arrived, piloting the ugliest, rustiest, loudest barge you've ever seen. I was on deck with him, grinning. As we lumbered into view, the crowd hushed, the catering crew paused, and even the gulls went quiet. Marlene spun, spotted the barge, and nearly lost her visor. She sprinted down the dock, arms waving, screaming, "No, this is private use. This is a community event." I shouted back, "Funny, Marlene. I thought you said this dock belonged to the community. Here's my contribution, a barge." Eddie bumped it gently against my dock, dropped anchor, killed the engine. The beast was immovable. The silence was golden. Kids whispered, neighbors stifled giggles. Marlene was apoplectic, shrieking about vandalism, public nuisance, threatening lawsuits. I leaned on the barge railing, called back. "It's a boat, Marlene. On a dock. That's what docks are for. If you want to talk vandalism, maybe we should discuss the illegal sign you cemented into my yard." Yeah, that happened. Right then, the twist. Here comes the spirit of freedom itself, gliding in like a Bond villain's lair, all chrome and spotless paint, easily twice the size of any house on the bay. Marlene, revived, barked at the caterers, waving the ribbon and yelling for me to move that rust bucket. Eddie just winked. The yacht slowed, the crew squinting at the scene. Champagne tables, Marlene waving frantically, me and Eddie leaning on the barge like two pirates who'd claimed the prize. I cupped my hands, shouted, "Sorry folks, dock's occupied. You'll have to find another spot." The captain shrugged, spun the wheel, and that yacht backed out, the whole neighborhood watching Marlene's big fantasy melt away. She lost it. Full-blown meltdown. Shrieking about humiliation, connections lost. "Do you know who was on that yacht?" I just deadpanned. "This isn't Davos, Marlene. It's a cul-de-sac in Florida." That cracked up a couple neighbors, even Eddie on the barge. But Marlene wasn't done. "This is war," she hissed, and stormed off, promising lawsuits, fines, eviction if I have to. I just shrugged. Better spell my name right. The barge stayed, looming like an iron guardian. Kids biked by to take photos, joggers slowed down to gawk. Even the local fishermen whistled. That's one way to tell the HOA to shove it. Marlene's next move was a barrage of letters. HOA letterhead, threats, demands, all empty. She accused me of endangering safety, obstructing maritime access, demanded $500 a day fines, 72 hours to comply. Community space, she called it. I made copies of her letter, taped them to the mailbox with a note. Fun fact, this dock belongs to me, not the HOA. Reading is fundamental. Neighbors started to catch on, and the more she escalated, the more people began to question her. After a trip to the county recorder's office, I pulled the records showing, plain as day, every dock was private, not subject to HOA rule. At the emergency HOA meeting she called, Marlene put on a show, giant photos of the yacht and the barge, wailing about property values and hazards. I stood up, passed out deed copies, explained the facts. If the real crisis is Marlene's party didn't happen, that's her problem, not ours. The crowd rippled with laughter. The invincible Marlene started to crack. Days later, she went nuclear. I woke to heavy machinery, a crane truck, workers, Marlene waving papers, ordering them to remove the barge. The workers refused, saying they needed legal proof. Deputies arrived, reviewed my paperwork, told Marlene, "Ma'am, this dock is private property. You don't have authority here." She turned purple, accused the sheriff of corruption. Deputies just packed up, told her to leave. That's when the lawsuit hit. Hand-delivered, thick enough to choke a horse. Accusations of public nuisance, reputational harm. I called Danielle Pierce, a sharp property attorney. She reviewed the case, laughed. This is either the dumbest thing I've seen or the most fun I'll have this year. Let's win it. When court day came, the place was packed. Marlene argued I'd defiled the aesthetic harmony of the bay. Danielle coolly presented the deed, the sheriff's letter, the HOA's own rules. The judge, glasses slipping, bored, dismissed the case on the spot. This dock is private. Fines invalid. Claims irrelevant. Case closed. He even warned the HOA to clean up their act. It was over, but Marlene wasn't finished. That night, she and two cronies tried to sneak down with bolt cutters, aiming to unchain the barge. Deputies caught them red-handed, flashlights shining. The three of them caught in the act, hands up like bad sitcom burglars. The whole neighborhood knew by sunrise. Photos of squad cars, Marlene in mid-tantrum, flying across Facebook. The final straw was my neighbor Tom, a retired Navy man, posting the whole story online, calling for a vote of no confidence. At the next board meeting, the room was wall-to-wall. One by one, neighbors stood up, demanded Marlene resign for wasting dues, trespassing, putting the community at risk. When the vote came, hands shot up, and just like that, she was out. No speech, no visor, no clipboard. Just a woman quietly leaving, clutching her last shred of pride. The new board dropped all fines, apologized, even cut the dues after canceling Marlene's secret legal fees. For the first time in ages, the neighborhood felt like a neighborhood. People smiled, grilled out. The barge left when Eddie came to tow it away, but the legend stayed. Kids drew chalk barges on the sidewalk. Tom raised a beer and said, "That barge did more for us than any HOA president." We laughed, clinking bottles. Yeah, you could say it docked us together. And if you ask me what I learned, it's that people like Marlene only have power when everyone's too scared to call their bluff. The minute you stand up, their throne collapses. She wasn't a queen, just another neighbor with too much time and a clipboard that wasn't a crown. Last time I saw her, she was out walking her dog, eyes down, just a regular person again. And me? I'm still here, feet dangling off my dock, beer in hand, watching the sun set over water that, thanks to one rusty barge and a little stubbornness, finally belongs to me again. Now, I want to hear from you. Was I right to stand my ground, or did I take it too far? What would you have done if the HOA came after your property like that? Is there a line between protecting your rights and becoming the villain in someone else's story? Drop your take in the comments, because, let's be real, there's always more than one side when it comes to neighborhood drama and the fight for a little peace and quiet.